Welcome back to the Oxendine Law Podcast. Your host, Jarrod Oxendine, co-host Christine Palmer, and today we're going to talk about our business clients. We love our business clients, and we want to make sure that you're protected. And if you're a business owner, you may be asking yourself, what happens to my business during a divorce? How do courts divide a business? And what are some strategies that I can implement to help save myself from making a mistake when it comes to assessing and evaluating and dividing my business in a divorce? So pay attention. Let's dive right in. Christine, businesses are divided just like any other asset. So if we have a business that has been either accumulated, as in started during the marriage, or even sometimes we have people that start businesses before they get married, but they grow in value during the marriage, that business is subject to division in the divorce, just like any other asset, like a house, like a 401k, like a bank account.
Right. It is an asset. It is probably one of the most complicated assets that you can possess because a lot goes into valuing what a business is worth. And there becomes an element of, is this a business that technically you could sell? Theoretically, could you sell it? And if you could, what would it bring in? If it's something you could not sell, that's just a lot of like your goodwill in your name, then how do you put a value on that? That's very difficult. And then even the businesses that we do have a very solid value, like they're pretty easy to value when you have an expert. It's like, or we pretty much know this is what the business is worth, but then the person can't just pull half of that value out of the business to hand to the other person. So creatively, how are we going to make sure that both parties are compensated?
So let's talk about valuing a business. The first thing I'll say about valuing a business is make sure you value your business. I know that sounds silly, but guess what, business owner? Your business is probably not worth what you think it's worth. Business owners are very guilty of thinking their business is worth a lot more than what it's really worth. I see that all the time. As you should. This is your baby. It's your blood. It's your sweat, your tears. And you think you can go out and sell to the market for millions of dollars. But guess what? A true valuation is probably going to be much less than what you think your business is worth. If you don't get that valuation, then you may make the mistake of overpaying your spouse for their interest in the value of your business. So number one is get your business valued. And guess what? Not all businesses have a value.
Right.
Very frequently, we have business owners and their business is not worth anything. For example, let's say you're a solo business owner. You have no employees. You don't have any repeat customers. There's nothing tangible to sell. In other words, somebody down the street, a buyer off the street, would not come and buy your business for any value because they could just start their own.
Right.
And in that scenario, your business is worth actually zero. But let's say your business is worth something. It's important to get it valued using an expert because there are lots of different discounts and other things that are applied and taken into consideration to determine the value of your business, which actually results in a lower valuation of the business than you actually may think your business is worth. For example, keep in mind, you've got to maintain this business after the divorce, and you get a discount for that. A lot of people make the mistake of, let's say the valuation comes back at $1 million. Christine, how many times have you seen somebody make the mistake of giving their spouse $500,000? Because that's $500,000. Big mistake. We don't let our business owners do that. Why? Because you've got to maintain that business as a going concern. You have to keep paying payroll. You got to manage it. You got to make sure you're producing the widgets. You got to make sure you're selling the widgets. You've got to do all the things that are necessary to keep that business up and running. And if you don't, the business is worth zero.
Right.
So why should your spouse get half of the value of the business when they don't have to do anything to keep it going as a going concern after the divorce?
Right. And then also, if you are the spouse who is maybe not the business owner, make sure you also have your independent evaluation, or at least have had an expert look it over, because how many times have we had the other side, we value the business, and they sit there and they say, there's no way my business is worth that. No. Like you didn't look. It's really just worth this. So they're going to try to say without an expert's testimony that my business is worthless. It's worth nothing. But they forget that inventory makes a difference and client book makes a difference. And really just the comparison to other businesses in the same field makes a difference. So a lot of times we're coming asking for a buyout from someone who says, there's nothing to buy out. My business is worth nothing. So both sides need to make sure that they're getting proper values of that business.
Well, and here's the other thing. Keep in mind, a lot of business owners think they're going to have to lose their business.
Right.
And you're not, if it's your business, if you have been the person that has been operating the business, you've been running the business, you're the face of the business, you're going to get to keep your business. It's not like your spouse is in the divorce is going to be able to take your business, right? We see that all the time when business owners are just scared shitless because they think that their spouse is going to get their business. That's not the way it works.
Right.
Your spouse has an interest in the value of the business, but you'll get to keep the business. The question becomes, how much is that interest worth and how should it be paid? And there's lots of different ways to structure the settlement of a buyout of a business. And I think here's another good tip that we're reaching right now for our business owners, which is, let's say you are making a lot of income in your business, and let's say your spouse doesn't work and they have no income. So theoretically, they have an alimony claim because they have no income, but they also have an interest in the division of your business.
Right.
Now, if I am representing the business owner, I want to structure that settlement paid monthly out over time as opposed to some big lump sum of cash. Let's say there is a lump sum of cash where you could just stroke your spouse a check and you don't have to pay them monthly. Well, then maybe they still have an alimony claim. But think about structuring that payout to where you pay them monthly over a long period of time. Now it technically is a double dip for them to get alimony and a monthly settlement payment from the business because both payments are coming from the same source.
Right.
It's a double dip. So if you structure the settlement right and the buyout right, you potentially can also avoid having to pay alimony.
Right. And you also want to make sure, past our advice, our legal advice, once this is done and we've decided legally how are you going to buy out from the business, please make sure that you consult a proper tax professional for that buyout later on too. Because I've seen people who, despite my legal advice, which I thought was clear, then pay their spouse out of the business. And then at the end of the year, the business accountant is saying, okay, how do we W-2 this person or how do we 1099 this person? And that wasn't income taxable to them because a business buyout is not taxable income. That's a property division, which is not taxable to the recipient. So if you are paying them somehow out of the business and not accounting for that, then you can't send them a 1099 or W-2 for income. So make sure that both on the personal side and the business side, you're consulting with proper accountants and tax professionals to make sure you're doing the buyout in a way that benefits you and doesn't harm you in the back end.
That's a great point. There's always tax implications, and business owners, and here's the example that comes to mind. I was representing a business owner and their business was selling properties. So this client had tons and tons of residential and commercial properties, and the income for the business was the development and construction of the properties. And then when those properties sold, that was the revenue for the business.
Right.
So obviously it was very important when we structured that settlement that we took into consideration the tax consequences, because when this business owner is developing these properties and then selling a property, there is a tax associated with the proceeds from that sale. And if you just go and pay your spouse out half or whatever percentage from those sales proceeds, they're doing great. Because guess who's paying that tax bill? The business owner is paying the tax bill. So if the business owner in that scenario is going to be hit with a tax bill, then the amount of the settlement for the spouse needs to be greatly reduced to take into consideration those tax payments that are going to become due down the road. So that's a great point. Look, we could talk about businesses all day. We love our business owners. We want y'all to be protected. You've worked hard. This is your baby. It's so important to make sure you have a qualified divorce attorney helping you assist with valuing that business, dividing that business, and structuring the settlement. A whole lot more we could talk about, but that's all we have time for today. If you need legal advice, reach out to us. We can make your complex business situation not so complex. And trust me, you're going to be just fine at the end of the day. Follow us. We're on all major social media platforms. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so that you will not miss an episode. We appreciate you joining us as always. We'll see you next week.